welcome into the newest edition of Caught Stealing, the fantasy baseball podcast here at Fantasy Alarm. I am Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway over on X, and with me here, as always, Matt Selz at the Selz Man, coming off of a hot weekend, both in terms of weather and some of your racing picks, if I remember seeing correctly. So, how's everything going, my friend?
Things are good. Yeah, my some of my props hit pretty well for the NASCAR race. DFS plays worked out pretty well. So, yeah, and then we got some really hot weather coming our way. I know the rest of the country has been dealing with it. Um, it's that time of year, right? You know what else is hot? Baseball news. There's a lot of it. Where even though we're getting up to the MLB All-Star break and the MLB draft, and then the trade deadline, we got some pretty loaded MLB news coming up.
We are at no shortage of that indeed. And let's go ahead, actually. Let's just do a quick, actually have it third on the talking sheet that we're looking at here, but you mentioned it. Let's talk about it. So obviously the All-Star rosters came out.
Yes.
Everyone's going to have some gripes about who made it, who didn't make it, why'd they make it, why didn't they make it. We got the home run derby. Obviously, we'll get to see that with the new rules, and that should be fun to say the least. Home run derby is always a good time to say the least. But Matt, quick talking point here. Who do you think are some big snubs? Who are some of your biggest snubs that you thought should have made the All-Star game that didn't?
So I'll admit that I didn't dig much into the AL side of snubs, but for the NL, I've got two. One for my Nationals, Jake Irvin. What's going on? His numbers are better than Shota Imanaga's. Everybody's talking all about Shota. As well they should be. He's had a very good first half of a season in MLB for the first time. But Jake Irvin's numbers better than Shota's. I know the Nationals aren't sexy, but to be honest, they're basically in the same spot as the Cubs, record-wise, playoff-wise, whatnot. So for Jake Irvin not to make it, I know pitchers aren't voted on by fans; they're selected by the coaches and other players. That feels like a pretty big snub to me. And then on the offensive side, Francisco Lindor. I don't really understand what Francisco Lindor has to do to get attention. I know a lot of folks have been complaining about his contract for a while. He sneakily went 30-30 last year and nobody paid attention to it, right? And then all he's done this first half, you know where he ranks in WAR among the NL right now for offensive players? He's fourth. He's fourth. And yet, so he's behind Shohei, Ellie De La Cruz, and Bryce Harper. All three of those dudes made the All-Star team. You know who else made it? The guy fifth, Ketel Marte, as well he should have. Mookie Betts made it. Will Smith made it. Christian Yelich made it. Freddie Freeman made it. Jurickson Profar made it. He's the only one in the top 10 of NL WAR that has not, according to Fangraphs, has not made the All-Star roster. And then Brandon Nimmo, too, who, by the way, I saw an interesting piece, has 25 career WAR and he's never won a Gold Glove, never made an All-Star team. Never, like, the list of things this guy hasn't done for a 25 WAR player is pretty impressive. So I will go with Lindor and Jake Irvin as my biggest snubs on the NL side.
I'll take the AL side. Even though he's in the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball Draft Guide as a bust, Kenley Jansen's been really good.
He's been really good.
Can't argue it. He's been good. So he was a snub. And then I'm looking here. So Jordan Westburg has been far better than I expected this year. And I think most would be the case. Yes. So I'm looking at it here. Qualified players in the American League.
Yep.
He is one of 17 to be hitting at least 280.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 17 that are hitting 280, if we're going to say you have to have at least 15 home runs and 6 stolen bases, because that is what Jordan Westburg is at. The other names that have meet that criteria hitting 280 with 15 homers and at least 5 stolen bases, Gunnar Henderson, All-Star, if I believe so, if I remember correctly. Jose Altuve, All-Star, if I remember correctly. And Bobby Witt Jr., All-Star, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Jordan Westburg, 280,
I will say Westberg is now an alternate. He's a replacement for somebody who got hurt.
Well,
But
yeah, I
I
mean,
get it. It took a guy getting hurt and skipping
exactly. I'm going with Westbrook.
through.
Even if he makes it, be or even if he's there at the game as an alternate now, he should have gotten that label by vote and performance, not because of an alternate. So
Correct. Can we also get rid of the every team has to have a guy rule? How is Tyler Anderson an all-star?
yeah.
I could go out there and pitch better than Tyler Anderson, and I haven't pitched since club league in college, which is longer ago than I care to remember.
Well, and is he the angel that even should be there?
No,
Because I think,
it should be Luis Rengifo.
or the backstop.
That's true. Logan O'Hoppe probably should have beaten out David Fry.
He's one of those 17 or 16 or 17 that are hitting at least 280. He's doing so as a catcher, 14 homers, and he's only at 42 RBI. Shout out the rest of the Angels lineup for that. But yeah, I think O'Hoppe should have been the Angels guy, not Tyler Anderson.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I don't know if I love that rule either, because then you have certain instances like when you look at a team
Like
like
the White Sox?
yeah,
How
like,
how are the White Sox getting anybody on an all-star team when they literally cannot
well,
win enough to
Crochet.
okay, stand out, I guess,
But then
but
you have other things too, like because of that rule, like you can make the case that Eric, the starter that they just got from overseas, former
Eric
national.
City.
Yeah, like he could be in there. Like his numbers are fine. Like you could make the case they should just take the best players and not do the one per team. Or if they want to keep the one for team, vote the players in that make it based on merit, then look to the alternates to fill in the gaps. Like, oh, you don't have oh, you had a wife. You don't have a tiger. Yeah, well, you're going to with Scooble, but you don't have a tiger. Let that be an alternate. Let that,
Or
because you're
Rocky.
going to have people that drop who pitch on Sunday, so they can't throw in the game, who get hurt. Go to the alternates for that to get the team's representation. You should be You should be voted an all-star based on your performance and what you have done thus far, and not potentially miss out because we have to have somebody from this team. You're going to need alternates. Stuff happens.
Yep.
Go to the
Or
teams
like
that don't
or
have
like
it
the
for the alternate.
Braves or like the Braves moving Chris Sale a day from Monday to Tuesday, which then makes him pitch on Sunday, which then means he's not pitching in the All-Star game so that they can squeeze an extra start out of him in the second half, which they should because he's been phenomenal and they're going to
Mhm.
need all the help they can get from that.
Yep.
Or Tyler Glasnow getting injured, which segues to our next topic.
Speaking of Tyler Glasnow, the Dodgers are pulling a 2023 Rays where we were talking about the all injured rotation that they have, and the Dodgers just might
Unbelievable.
top it with Glasnow, Otani. You have whatever you want to make with every other injured starter that they have. You now have Walker Buehler, who I saw a post
He
on
left.
X.
He's not working out with the team. He's in Florida doing his own separate private thing, which they don't do, but apparently he insisted on it.
I want to find.
That doesn't seem to bode well for trust in the Dodgers medical
Okay,
staff.
so, shout out Fabian Ardaya at Fabian Ardaya over on X, covers the Dodgers for The Athletic, it looks like, per their X profile. Walker Buehler remains at the sports performance in Florida, throwing bullpens and working on his mechanics. Dave Roberts said, I can say there's progress, but I really can't even speak intelligently what that progress is. I really can't.
Yeah,
Dave Roberts is the king of saying so many words.
and saying nothing.
Yep. Yep. That's him. And then you have Bobby Miller, who I still think there's an injury. Something's
Yeah,
wrong.
he got optioned
Yep. He's at
because
AAA.
he's been what posted nearly a 10 ERA
Yep.
since coming back from
I
injury.
think they said what? He's working with the player development staff until the All-Star break and then opens the second half with AAA Oklahoma
Oklahoma
City.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's confusing. They have 2 minor league affiliates in Oklahoma because they have AA at Tulsa and AAA at Oklahoma City. But yeah, they also have Yamamoto's injured, Emmett Sheehan still injured, Dustin May still injured, Clayton Kershaw, who the hell knows when that guy's coming back?
Yep.
Tony Gonsolin still injured. The Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Marlins have gone through the most starting pitchers this year without including openers so far in the first half. The Dodgers, I think, have pitched 13 or 14 different starting pitchers without including openers.
Mhm.
The Marlins are at that level, and the Diamondbacks, I think, with Yolbert Diaz on Monday was their 13th different starting pitcher, again, not including openers. Props to them for having depth, but this is really becoming a concern if you're in fantasy and you've banked on Dodger starting pitchers because they have such a high win chance.
Mhm.
Um, and B, if you're just legitimately a fan of the Dodgers, when are you concerned about what their medical staff is doing or their pitching staff who's clearly not helping these guys clean up their deliveries enough to stay healthy?
Yep.
I don't know. Also, I'm not trusting Walker Buehler at this point. I mean, I don't think he comes back this year, and even if he even going into next year, I'm not trusting him. He's on my fade list for next year because he's not missed bats in like 4 years.
And like Bobby Miller strikeouts have dissipated
Correct.
too. So it's like, I mean, in shallow leagues, I don't even think you can hold on to either of them, to be honest.
I would tend to I would tend to agree. Now, I will say that I do like Robleski, who they called up and
Mhm.
should get some more turns through the rotation. I think he's a pretty interesting lefty for them. Has a 4 pitch mix of like everything in that mix is at least MLB average, if not above. I wrote about him in this week's prospect report. You can find it now on fantasyalarm.com. Um, I like his stuff. He's basically a number 4 starter, maybe mid rotation. Um, he kind of goes under the crafty lefty, so he's not a high strikeout lefty, but you're going to get some pretty solid win chances considering the fact that their offense is still chugging along pretty well.
Yep. Also, in that prospect report that you penned or typed over at I don't know, maybe you wrote it by hand and sent it in and
I wrote it in
someone
my head
transcribed
first,
it. Yeah,
and then I transcribed it onto a computer.
there
Yes.
you go. Reese Hines is another guy who was in the prospect report this week, and there was a question in our Discord. So if you are a Fantasy Alarm subscriber, you have access to the Discord, and you can ask questions to us directly. One of them was a question around Reese Hines, and I said you can add him now as a speculative ad. Enjoy the power while it's here, but there's a very real chance a month from now he's hitting 210 with a 30+% strikeout rate. And when you look 2023 at Double A, 151 strikeouts in 109 games, 412 at bats. And then prior to the promotion this year, yes, he did have 29 extra base hits in 77 games. He also had hit 216 with a sub 300 OBP and 126 strikeouts in 296 at bats. A lot of power.
Yes.
There's a lot of holes though. So what do you make of Hines? Is it just going to be this true 2 outcome hitter? It's a home run or a strikeout, and that's pretty much it.
I basically said, look, he got drafted for his power and his cannon of an arm in the outfield with the hope that they could fix the well below average hit tool. It doesn't seem to have been fixed. The best strikeout percentage he's posted in his entire minor league career, regardless of organization, regardless of level, was it Class A in a 43 game sample. He struck out 28.1% of the time. That's the best strikeout rate that Reese Hines has posted. Now, granted, there's a 3 game sample in rookie ball where it's a 30%, but you know, this year at AAA, he was striking out 38.4% of the time. So while the 13 homers and the 12 steals are very nice, and he went 23-20 at AA last year in 109 games, it's basically like he's swinging with his eyes closed and hoping he's making contact enough to get on base. Right? So will the power play? Absolutely. In Great American Small Park, we've already seen it. He's launched 2 absolute mammoth bombs in his short time in the majors. However, I highly doubt that that's going to continue. I think you're right. In about a month, um, he's going to be hitting just about the Mendoza line. He's going to have struck out a bunch, and yeah, there'll be power. Maybe there's a little more value in an OBP league because it'll be higher than batting average, but it's still not going to be high enough to help you. He's going to get some run because the Reds need all the help they can get in the outfield right now, thanks to a couple of different injuries. with Nick Martini going down with a thumb issue and Stuart Fairchild, I think, has a back thing. It's like a spinal disc issue, I think.
Mhm.
So he's going to get some run, but doesn't mean he's going to be all that helpful in fantasy.
And look at it, like he's gonna run streaky. Like I'm looking here at his minor league numbers. In the month of April, he hit 181 with damn near a 50% strikeout rate. Then he comes in May, clobbers 11 extra base hits in 23 games, and he still struck out 35 times in 85 at bats, hit 271. Then what does he do when he comes back in June? Hits 180 with 38 strikeouts and
Right.
basically 90 at bats.
And the other thing we've got to really pay attention to now with the AAA schedule, which I don't know if a lot of people have paid attention to, and I believe this is the case for AA as well, is the minors have switched up how they're doing the schedule. So you play like when I go see the Storm Chasers in Omaha, AAA affiliate for the Royals. They play the same team from Tuesday through Sunday,
Mm,
right? So like they're playing, I believe, Toledo this week, the Mud Hens, the AAA affiliate of the Tigers. They started playing them on Tuesday. We're recording this on Thursday. They will stop playing them Sunday. Then everybody is off on Monday and they travel to the next series or travel home. And then they play the same team from Tuesday through Sunday. So if you're really feasting on a team's uh pitching staff, you can put up really good numbers in a month because you had an absolutely hell of a week. And then the next month you play a team with, better pitchers and you go streaky. So it's a lot tougher to figure out, exactly how those numbers translate right now, rather than what they used to do, which was play 3 or 4 game sets and then travel in 3 or 4 game sets, whatnot. So that's just something to pay attention to when you're evaluating guys who are coming up. They've played a lot of the same guys for a week. And if you see a bullpen, like think about it, when we're in 7 game series in the playoffs in baseball, and you see the same reliever for the third time, how likely is it that the opposing batters are going to feast off that guy because they know what he has, right?
right.
It, so we got to take that into account.
And in just 3 games at the big league level for Hines, we're already seeing, looking at fan graphs here, 50% O swing rate. So he's leaving the zone often. And he's, despite how good he's been,
39.
18.9% swinging strike rate with a
He
bunch of
hasn't
strikeouts.
walked, and he
Yep.
hasn't walked.
Yep.
So if you need power, sure, but he's not. He's not a guy at the top of my ad list right now.
That I would agree with as well. So let's close the door on that. Let's move over to our weekly patience or panic here, as we are going to talk about 2 guys before we get to some waiver wire options, or an option and a streaming option for the weekend. And we're going to start in Chicago with Dansby Swanson. At face value, the 8 home runs and 5 stolen bases through the, I guess it's more of the anecdotal halfway point of the season. 8 homers and
Well, he's
5
played
stolen
82
bases.
games, so it's basically
Yeah,
half of the season.
more or less. 8 home runs, 5 stolen bases, not too bad. Paces out for 16 and 10, but a 205 average, a 279 OBP, and a 619 OPS. I do believe all of those, other than his, no, those would all be career lows for him. His slugging would actually, it would be the second lowest, with 2017 being the lowest of his career in terms of slugging. But it's been an all around abysmal year for Dansby Swanson. Over his last 7 games, it hasn't gotten any better. Over his last 30 games, hitting just 231 strikeouts and 105 at bats. Is there anything to salvage here with the rest of Swanson's 2024 season, or is this just this is kind of what he is this year?
It's so hard to tell because, like, I know he's walking a little less, he's striking out a little bit more, um, but I don't know if we're hoping that the ball carries better in the summer at Wrigley. I don't know that that's gonna help. I mean, it may help the power, but he's on pace for uh, what you would expect, I guess. Like, I don't know that we would have expected him to go a fourth straight year of 20 plus homers. He never really kind of like his power numbers have been trending down each of the last 3 years from 27 to 25 to 22. Now he's trending to 16. I think you hope that he gets hot in the second half and raises the average, but as far as everything else, I mean, it's Kind of been an up and down first half for the Cubs all around.
Mhm.
So, but the other thing is, I don't know where you're going at this point with shortstop.
Right.
Like, is there anybody significantly better that you can fully count on that's likely on your waiver wire? I doubt it unless you're in a really shallow, like a smaller league.
Mhm.
But I don't know because like none of the numbers really stand out that much. Like the 28% K rate is a little on the higher side, but it's not like massively out of whack.
Yeah, and when you look at his expected statistics, that all of those numbers are far better. But even so, his expected batting average of 240 would be his lowest mark in the past half decade. His 410 expected slug would be like the third or fourth lowest of his career. His expected WOBA of 316 would be his lowest since 2018. Like even there, eh, launch angles down a little bit, so more ground balls in theory. The barrel rate is down. Average exit velocity is actually right in line, interestingly enough. But overall, it just hasn't been good. And maybe it is part of just kind of whatever's been plaguing Chicago. And it's kind of hit Swanson this year. But the decreasing walk rate, at least compared to the year before, and the increase in strikeouts is not a good trend.
No, that's the concerning part of this. Whether the approach is a little different under Craig Counsell and his staff, I don't know. It seems like their bullpen's been more problematic than anything else. But
And if we look at over at Baseball Savant, this by percentage of pitches seen, the breaking category, breaking pitches, so curveball, slider, sweeper, whatever you want to call those. Swanson's seeing more pitches like that than he ever has in his career. And this year against breaking pitches, he's hitting 190 with a 35% whiff rate.
so maybe just get in the cage and set it to whatever Paul Skeen's splinter is, and then
Yep.
get used to it.
Could it be indeed? And let's go ahead, wrap it up here. So for the patience or panic, Josh Hader, this seems like it's one of those years where he's just the home runs are gonna catch up to him a little bit. We've talked about it before, I think in recent years, but his pitching profile does lend itself to some home runs because it's fastballs up in the zone. Go look at the heat map and his fastball or sinker, whatever you want to end up calling it. It does live in the upper third of the zone. He's always allowed a pretty high launch angle. This year's 18%, which is pretty much right in line with years past. His career average is about 21. All the expected numbers are pretty solid. It's just home runs have been biting him a little bit here. So, is there really any panic with Josh Hader? Like, I don't expect him to lose the closer role by any means, but in terms of closing for the Astros this year, his 16 saves are good. The 1.05 whip is pretty solid, and the strikeout numbers are good. It's just that 4.05 ERA with 5 losses that are just a kind of an eyesore.
Yeah, if so, he's at 1.8 home runs per nine, which obviously not not great for sure for a closer. However, for relievers, that number is a little skewed because it's such a smaller sample size that every home run weights higher because there's less innings
Right.
pitched against it. I will say that in 2019 in Milwaukee, when he went 75 and two-thirds innings, he posted a 178 home runs per nine and posted a 2.62 ERA with walk rates that are pretty well the same as this one, a little better strikeout rate. Um, his left on base is concerning. He's not stranding as many guys as he usually does. But if you look at the expected ERA, 2.96, you can live with that. That's well within what we
Mhm.
expect from Josh Hader. His 2.39 xFIP is basically in line. It's actually better than his career 2.74 xFIP. His FIP of 3.52, still a little high, but that's going to be dinged because of the home runs, right? Because it's fielding independent pitching. It's three true outcomes. Home runs are part of that. So I think it's okay. I think what it is he's pitched in more hitter friendly parks this year than he has in the past. Like San Diego, not that hitter friendly.
Right.
Most of the NL West, not as hitter friendly as you think. Milwaukee, fairly neutral park. Most of the NL Central, except for Great American Small Park, is fairly neutral, right? So you can get away with a little bit more mistakes. I'm not that concerned. He's still providing you strikeouts. He's still providing you saves. And the 40 innings of a 4.05 ERA isn't going to kill you because, again, it's 40 innings compared to even your fifth starter right now has like twice as many innings. So that's not even going to kill you that much. So I'm not that panicked. We've seen him do this before. All the expected numbers suggest that he's pitching about to what we expect.
Absolutely. So that's a little patience or panic. Don't sweat Josh Hader. Panic your mind off with Dansby Swanson and hope for the best with him. But Matt, let's wrap up this week as we head into, well, I guess All-Star week slash weekend, really, for
Yeah, so if you're making moves this Sunday, you're really not gonna see the benefits until Friday when everybody, restarts
yep.
for the second half.
Yep. So let's take a little speculative ad on the waiver wire and obviously a weekend streamer as well. And we're both looking to pitchers here. So I'll let you go ahead and take the waiver wire ad, the people that should be looking maybe for a speculative closer ad.
Yeah, so this kind of tails we made a little change on the fly, we're running a little long, so we took Paul Sewald out of the patience or panic section. We're both a little panicked about Paul Sewald. He blew 3 saves in a row down to the final out and couldn't do it. He did, however, get the save on Wednesday night, so there was that, but in case Paul Sewald gets moved out of the closer role, which Torey Lovello has said they won't do, but you got to start winning games at some point, right? So, a speculative ad for saves, Kevin Ginkle. He's been really, really good of late. Sure, the beginning of April was a little rough for him. You know, can we really take what pitchers are doing in early April coming back from spring training? The Diamondbacks had a World Series hangover, whatnot. Of late, though, since June 1st, 0.5 ERA. That's pretty good for anybody, but especially a reliever. He's striking out a bunch of guys. His pitches are looking really crisp. They're missing bats. He's got almost a 30% K rate since June 1st. So if you're looking for a speculative ad and saves, Kevin Ginkle in Arizona is a guy who you should be watching for.
Paul Sewald is a closer for now. Might not
Yes.
be moving
Also,
forward.
if you need holds, Ginkle's getting holds too.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there's that.
You have that. And then if you need a weekend streamer, look to Jose Quintana. He gets the Rockies on Sunday. He gets the Rockies away from Coors. This year on the road versus left-handed pitching.
Not great.
Colorado's got a 288 WOBA and a strikeout rate just below 26%. Then look at Quintana himself, a 2.13 ERA over his last 7. He's got 4 quality starts in his last 5. And splits just so happen to be in his favor at home. 308 ERA and a 1.15 whip at home. And those numbers balloon to a 4.79 ERA and 1.38 whip when he's away from his home park. So look to Jose Quintana. He's basically available in most ESPN leagues. I saw it was like 30 some percent of CBS sports leagues. So he should be out there, especially in some shallower formats. Take a look at him. You want your lefties against Colorado. You really, really, really want your lefties against Colorado when it's not in Coors.
Correct.
So Jose Quintana is your streamer. If you are not subscribed to Fantasy Alarm as an all-pro member, you are missing out on the brains of the analysts here at Fantasy Alarm. Get inside of our heads, ask questions, lineups, trades, trade deadlines coming up, speculative ads, what you need to do with your roster, anything like that. Subscribe today and join the Discord to get your questions answered. Like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to your podcast. And last but not least, your last action item for the week. Follow me on X at Colby R. Conway. Give the racing renowned and prospect guru Matt Selz a follow at the Selzman, and follow everybody else at Fantasy Alarm as well. Can't hurt. Good content coming out of there. So make sure you do all that. Enjoy the weekend, and we will see you next week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.